Hi, I'm saradhooma, and by the end of the video, you will know which Camino de Santiago route is the best one for your next trip.
In the past 5 years, I've walked several Camino de Santiago routes, and people often ask me, hey Sarah, what's the best route? And that's a very, very difficult question to answer because it comes down to a lot of different factors, such as the time of year you want to go, the length of time you want to walk, your physical fitness, and what you want to get out of the Camino. Some people choose to walk just for spiritual reasons. Other people, they're more drawn to the historic side, cultural, for fitness, for the nature, or even the wine. In the Spanish city of Santiago de Compostela, there is a big cathedral, and inside that cathedral are the remains of St. James. And so since medieval times, as far back as the 9th century, people have been setting out from their homes, wherever their home may be. It could be in Spain, Italy, Germany, wherever, and walking all the way to Santiago to pay their respects inside the cathedral. There's been a revival in the last few decades, thanks to a lot of different books and movies like The Way. And now we have all sorts of great modern pilgrimage routes that go towards Santiago. Now, if arriving in Santiago is not important to you, feel free to do just sections or parts of the different routes. You don't always have to end in Santiago unless you really, really want the certificate. According to the Pilgrim Office, last year, 327,000 pilgrims arrived in Santiago. That is incredible. And 50% of those pilgrims walked on the Camino Frances. The Camino Frances runs from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France and then kind of goes in a straight line past Pamplona and Burgos and Leon onto Santiago. It is definitely the most popular and most famous of the Camino routes. It's about a little less than 800 kilometers, and it usually takes people between 5 to 6 weeks to walk. I walked it in 24 days because I had my Appalachian Trail legs, and my mom joined me for the last part, and that was super awesome and memorable. So on this way, you're going to have a variety of accommodation options. If you want to be on a budget, you can stay in the municipal or donativo albergues. You can step it up, stay in a privately owned and run albergue, or you can go for the bed and breakfast and hostel. If you are struggling with backpack weight, there are bag transfer services too. They're really easy to use, and so you can have your bag waiting for you at the end of each day's stage and only carry a little day pack with your water and snacks. This way goes through a variety of terrain. There are some steepish parts and hilly parts, so it's not totally easy, but it's a very popular, busy Camino, and there's a lot of first-timers on it, so you're gonna get tons and tons of support. And there's a lot of taxis and buses too, if you get injured and need to skip ahead sections. I recommend this for first-timers because of the social aspect, and it is beautiful. There are amazing historic sites along the way to see. The main downfall is that it is so busy. There's a lot of shops and places to eat along the way because businesses have taken advantage of the touristy nature. So that's a positive and negative, that you can get a cafe con leche or a beer fairly often, but some of these businesses have done some shady practices like redirecting the yellow arrows in villages to go directly to their shop. If you're looking for something more peaceful and solitary, this is definitely not the Camino for you. The best time to walk this Camino is in the spring or in the fall. You can do it in the summer, but it can be brutally, brutally hot, so you might want to do some very early before dawn hike. Portuguese Camino is also a great choice for a first-timer. You can start in Lisbon or even further south, but most people, including myself, start in Porto and walk to Santiago. That distance is about 230 kilometers. The terrain is fairly flat with some hilly sections, But for most of the time, you're going to be going through vineyards and countrysides and small villages. It's very picturesque. I really enjoyed experiencing the Portuguese culture and the Portuguese food, even though it was a bit tough for me to get a handle on the language. There are very similar services to the Camino Frances, that there's bag transfer and there's a variety of accommodations available, and the route is getting more and more popular each year. 25% of those who arrived in Santiago came on the Portuguese Way. And I walked the Central Way. There is also an option to walk a coastal path that I will do in the future. That also sounds fantastic, because then you get the view of the sea and it's supposed to be flat and fat. If you're a first-time walker, I would suggest doing the Portuguese Way from Porto in 12 to 14 days. I did it in 9 days, and there were some longer stages in there. And you can really do this walk almost any time of year, but be warned, if you go in the winter time, some albergues may be closed and it might be rainy. The Northern Way goes from Irún, near the border with France, right along the coast towards Santiago. And it is absolutely stunning. It is just, it's hard to describe how wonderful it is to have the mountains on one side and the sea on the other. This walk is pretty challenging. Now, I only walked as far as Bilbao. I did that in about 7 days, and that is the Basque Country section, which is known to be the most difficult. And there were some hard climbs in there with some mud and slippery stuff. So I don't recommend this for people who haven't really walked before or hiked before. And the way marking got a little bit tricky at times as well. It's recommended for people who love nature, and especially if they love swimming, because you have the opportunity to swim in the sea along the way at several points. It's also recommended if you like eating food. The seafood and the Basque style tapas are out of this world. San Sebastian is a first-class city, as well as Bilbao. There's lots of museums and things to see along the way. And for accommodations, the route is getting more and more popular. So I found I had to kind of like do a little bit of a hurry up to get my chosen albergue. But there are also the private B&B and hotel options out there if you want to go a little bit more in style than the cheapo albergues. If you do the full route of the Northern Way, which I will finish in the future, don't worry, it's about 800 kilometers in length, and the best time to walk is definitely in the summer, because you're going to have great weather, and because you're near the coast, it's not going to be as hot as walking inland. The Via de la Plata, or the Silver Way, is the route that I walked last winter. It's about 1,000 kilometers in length, and it starts in Seville and goes up to Santiago. This is an old, ancient kind of route that the Romans took for trade, and then in later years it became a pilgrimage route. And so you're going to get a lot of Roman stuff to see. There's right out of Seville, Italica, where they have this beautiful amphitheater that was recently used in Game of Thrones, as well as Merida, which is a stunning, stunning city full of Roman ruins and museums and wonderful, wonderful things to see. Plus, there's also medieval Renaissance cities like Salamanca that has a gorgeous cathedral. So this route is recommended for history buffs. Now, it is a very lonely road. You're not going to see very many pilgrims as compared to the other routes, and the accommodation choices are limited. Some places you'll find albergues, some places you may need to stay in a hostel. One thing I really like about this Camino is that you cross Extremadura. Extremadura is famous for its jamón. The pigs there They kind of roam around acorn trees and have a happy life eating up acorns, and that jamon just melts in your mouth and has a slightly nutty flavor, and it is one of the most delicious things I've ever tasted in my life. I really recommend the Via de la Plata for people who want a more solitary Camino. It is fairly flat. There's only a few big tricky climbs, but there are some very long stages. So you need to be comfortable with walking long days, or try and seek other alternatives like arranging taxis to kind of cut some of the stages down in size. The best time to walk this way is pretty much any time except for the summer. The summer is going to be blazing hot. I walked it in February last year, and that was a great time for me because my walking days were warm but still cool, and at night it was cold, but as long as you put lots of blankies on, you're all good in the albergue. The Le Puy Camino, or Via Podiensis, I have trouble pronouncing that, or the GR65 hiking route. It starts in Le Puy-en-Velay, and it is the most popular Camino pilgrimage route in France. So it starts there, and then it goes down to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, where you can pick up the Camino Frances if you plan to go on to Santiago, or you can do this weird, I did this weird 3-day connector thing to go up to the Northern Way. But that's definitely not something popular people do. It was this kind of weird route myself and Camille put together. Anyways, Camino is for people who love food. The wine, the cheese, the meats, ooh, so delicious. It is fairly hilly and strenuous in times, so it's not a fast, flat walk by any means. And I encountered a lot of mud, so without hiking poles, I would have wiped out several times. But I love the gîtes. The gîtes are the places like the albergues where you can stay. And some of them are like farmhouses where they have a bed available. And then the price includes demi-pension, your breakfast, your dinner, and your bed for the night. And the dinners were gourmet style meals, multiple courses of food. I did not even know cheese courses existed until I walked the Le Puy Camino. There, like a big platter of cheese would come out to the table with like 5 or 6 different types of cheese. And as a cheese lover, this was great. So it was a really, really enjoyable Camino because you're walking in a lot of natural stuff. There's lots of historical, interesting things to see along the way. And then at the end of the night, you're very, very comfortable. Now, because it is this style of walking, it's a little bit more expensive than walking in Spain. So you do need to budget some more money. I would say, budget like 30 euros a day if you're going to kind of mix it up, staying with the gîtes with the full meals and staying at some of the like municipal places or donativo places and cooking your own food. I walked the Le Puy Camino in 33 days. I was definitely taking my time, and that's about the average amount of time people do take. It's about 750 kilometers, and the best time to walk this route is in the spring or the fall because the summer can be really hot, and the winter you're going to get a lot of snow at the higher elevations like the Aubrac Plateau. The English Way, or Camino Ingles, is the Camino that people from the United Kingdom or Scandinavia historically took when they came by ship to Spain. They would disembark and then walk down to Santiago. So most people start in Ferrol because that's 110 kilometers from Santiago. You need to walk a minimum of 100 kilometers to be eligible for the completion certificate. So you start from Ferrol, and the first part is kind of coastal stuff, and then you move more into countryside and trees. Now, it takes about a week to walk. I took 6 days, that's about average. This Camino had some interesting stuff to see along the way. There were very few like tough climbs. It's kind of like average kind of Camino. I don't recommend this Camino for a first timer because there are limited sleeping options. There are some municipal albergues which are very cheap, but to get those albergues, you have to get into the albergue bed race. And if you watch my video log for the Camino English, you will see what happened one day when I arrived later than I should have at the albergue. And I was pretty sore and angry about it. Anyways, it is a nice walk. There are some cool stuff to see along the way. And you can walk it year round, though if you walk it in the winter, because you're up near the coast, you might get a lot of rain, because it is Galicia after all. The Ruta de la Lana. This is a remarkable Camino. I don't recommend it at all for a first timer. I recommend it for a seasoned walker because it is very lonely and not a lot of people speak English along the way. So you need to have your Camino Spanish really up to snuff to be able to survive. So it starts in Alicante in the south of Spain, and then it goes up to Burgos where it joins with the Frances, and you can continue on to Santiago from there if you wish. The way goes through a lot of rolling countryside, but it is fairly flat. But there are some standout, beautiful natural sections, like a few gorges that just kind of took my breath away. But the real star of this Camino is definitely the people and the small villages that you pass through. There are so few walkers coming along that the different associations along the way are all informed of who's coming up and down the pipeline. So there is places where I arrived in a local village bar and I walked in and the bartender smiled broadly and said, "Hola, Sara." And I was like, what? But he got the word that there was a Canadian pilgrim woman coming through. And the places where you stay, it's always going to be a surprise. Some of the places are very rustic. Some of the places don't even have beds and you have to sleep on the ground. While other places have beautiful, beautiful albergue spaces and old historic houses with full amenities. And so places, if you don't want to sleep on a gym floor, there are usually some kind of options where you can stay for a small amount of money, like 15 or 20 euros in a hostel or a room in somebody's house. And, you know, I really felt the spirit of the Camino on this walk. There's just so much, so much kindness along the way. And it is truly, truly unforgettable. I only met less than 5 pilgrims the entire time, and it was really a remarkable moment in my life to spend that time walking forward. And sorry, I'm getting emotional now talking about the Lana, but I think the Lana just really touched my heart. Sorry, I'm going on. Okay, so the Mozarabe Camino starts from 3 different points. You can start from Malaga, you can start from Almira, or you can start from Jaén. So the way from Malaga was just over 200 kilometers, and it was very strenuous. I thought because Malaga, the city of Malaga is on the coast, it was going to be flat. Yeah, no problem. No, Malaga is the second most mountainous province in Spain, and it was hard going for the first few days crossing the mountains. But then once I got into these wonderful olive groves, things kind of mellowed out, and I did have a very flat, enjoyable section on the olive trail, rail trail. So this was a section where there was train tracks, and it's been repurposed into a walking and cycling mixed use path. And this Camino has a lot of great albergues along the way, and the people there are also very nice. I did not see one other walker. I was all alone for my time there, and it if you have a short amount of time and you want something compact and a little bit of a challenge, I definitely recommend walking from Malaga to Cordoba. As for the time of year to walk this way, I think you could probably walk it pretty much any time of year. However, if there's a lot of snow in the mountains, that might be a little bit difficult. And with the snow melt, there are some rivers that you have to cross, so that you might have to do some detours around them if they're flowing way too fast. So what's next for me? I'm going to be walking the Camino Salvatore and the Camino Primitivo in the fall. I'm really excited because these are both two very challenging mountain routes, and there's a short weather window that you can walk them comfortably because of snow in the mountains. So this fall, I can't wait to be back one Caminoing it along as a Pellegrina. And if you want more information about any of these routes that I've mentioned today, you can go to my YouTube channel, go under the playlist section and go under the Camino de Santiago playlist, and you'll see all those routes listed there, and you can watch those daily video blogs of my experience. So please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Comment below if you have any questions or anything you'd like to add to this video. And if you'd like to support the future of this channel and contribute to its ongoing success, please check out my Patreon page. So cheers, thank you everybody.